Hello and welcome to this week's edition of On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. I'm your host, Chris Green, Director of Network Expansion for Avoya Travel, and thank you so much for your time for tuning in today. We have a very exciting show lined up, lots of positive travel news to share as cruise ships get back to sailing in and out of U.S. ports. We'll touch on some of the highlights in our Eye on the Industry feature. We introduce a new segment today as we expand the concept of our Meet the Team to also meet the industry. And our first guest, Sylvia, ECC, Vice President of Industry and Trade Relations for CLIA, will be joining us at the perfect time to discuss all of these exciting COVID milestones as we kind of hopefully come out of COVID for the cruise industry, as well as providing us with a preview of this year's Cruise 360 event. That'll be happening in Fort Lauderdale area in 2 weeks. We'll talk promotions and all the ways you can join the #1 host agency in leisure travel. And of course, make sure you have all the ways to reach out and connect with us. The network expansion specialists are excited to share all of the things that make Avoya Travel #1 year after year. So let's not wait another minute. Let's kick off this week's On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update with some industry insights and our Eye on the Industry feature. To ask or not to ask, that is the question. And the big story this week is Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, the parent company of Norwegian Cruise Lines, and the state of Florida prepare to battle it out in court. Now, the issue surrounds NCL's policy that all guests must be fully vaccinated to sail, and Florida's law that bans businesses from demanding proof of vaccination status to offer services. Now, the complaint that was filed this Tuesday is being called a last resort option for NCLH, calling Florida's law a misguided intrusion. The complaint went on to say the upshot places NCLH in an impossible dilemma as it prepares to set sail from Florida. NCLH will find itself either on the wrong side of health and safety and the operative federal legal framework, or else on the wrong side of Florida law. The Norwegian Gem is scheduled to sail out of Miami in the middle of August, sailing with about 53% capacity, and they're asking the federal court to suspend Florida's prohibition. Richard Fain, the CEO and chairman of Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited, released what can only be termed a very upbeat and positive message yesterday. Giddy would be the word I would use to describe it, as he broke out in song and called the pace of change dizzying, pointing out that across the multiple brands that RCL Limited operates, they have now 21 ships sailing between those in the United States, Europe, and Asia. And saying the reason they've been able to return to service in a successful manner is due to the fact they believed in their people and believed in the science. And we'll be touching on some of these recent sailings in more depth with my special guest, Sylvia, ECC from CLIA, in just a few minutes. Crystal Cruises announced this week the redeployment of the Crystal Symphony to Boston and New York City, and they'll be sailing a series of 7-day cruises to Bermuda starting in August. Now, originally scheduled to sail out of Antigua and St. Martin this August, those sailings got canceled for a couple of reasons. Some of it had to do with the airlift, just physically getting people to those locations, and of course, the increased demand for sailing direct from the United States. The first sailing will be from Boston on August 22nd, sailing with reduced capacity and a fully vaccinated guest list and crew, and will include a 2-day stay at Bermuda's Royal Naval Dockyards. The ship will then sail out of New York City starting September 24th with that same itinerary. And finally, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made it clear that Canada will not be open for international travel anytime soon. I can tell you right now, that's not going to happen for quite a while, the Prime Minister is quoted as saying from yesterday. We need to continue to ensure the safety of Canadians, and he stressed the importance of making sure that the past years plus of quarantines and restrictions, and again quoting, are not for nothing. The current border closure is set to expire on July 21st, but by all looks of it, it will be extended again. They did ease rules for vaccinated Canadian citizens and permanent residents that started back on July 5th, but really that does little to help the tourism industry of Canada that is very dependent on American travelers in order to survive. As we move forward with this week's edition of On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update, we're very excited to introduce you to a new segment, our first ever Meet the Industry feature. Now, for the last 6 months, we've had the pleasure of introducing you to some incredibly talented people that work for Avoya Travel during our Meet the Team segment. And as we enter the third quarter of 2021, which is already shaping up to be one of the most dynamic and exciting years ever in the travel industry, we're excited to expand that concept to include a Meet the Industry feature, as well as some Meet the Network features that we have planned for future broadcasts. And don't worry, we still have plenty of amazing people from within the Avoya team to introduce you. So our Meet the Team segment will continue, and it'll make appearances in that rotation too. Now today, for our debut segment of Meet the Industry, we're excited to spotlight Charles Sylvia, ECC, Vice President of Industry Trade Relations with CLIA, the Cruise Lines International Association. And let's face it, relationships are incredibly important in our industry. And we're so proud and fortunate to have some of the strongest relationships of any host agency. Those relationships directly lead to things like stronger marketing relationships, unique sales and price points that provide a competitive advantage, or in the case of Avoya Travel and CLIA, a very unique and award-winning relationship that utilizes the world-class training available through CLIA for our new-to-travel agencies to then springboard into a successful launch of their travel career, as well as just a whole host of other benefits for our other members who join CLIA through Avoya Travel. So I'm very happy to welcome our special guest today, Charles Sylvia, ECC, CLIA's Vice President of Industry and Trade Relations, to this week's On Deck with Avoya. Charlie, welcome. It's so great to see you, my friend.
Chris, thank you so much for that warm welcome and introduction. And it's a thrill to be here. I'm really privileged, and thank you, Skip, and the entire leadership team of Avoya for this wonderful opportunity.
Charlie, there's so many exciting things that I want to cover today. And of course, the health of the industry, the return of cruising from United States waters, Cruise 360 coming up here in a couple of weeks. But I thought it might be best if we started out getting a bit of a backstory on yourself, how you got into the travel business, and how that led you to your current position as VP of Industry and Trade Relations.
Well, you know, Chris, it's in my blood. It really is. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA, cruise travel. I love travel of any kind. But ever since I was a little kid, I was fascinated by ships. I wanted to grow up to be a maritime or a marine architect, rather, and I would buy big drawing pads and draw these beautiful ocean liners and so forth. And it all began for me in terms of cruise, Chris, when in Christmas 1977, my aunt, Evelyn, my great aunt, who was my grandmother's sister, she actually surprised me with tickets to go on the original Love Boat. And John Chinesky loves this story. I started off my cruising career, which I think I'm in excess of 200 cruises by now. In fact, I'm certain of it. But it started aboard the original Pacific Princess, the 1971 build, in 1978 on that 7-day Mexican Riviera itinerary. And I would then grow to one day know Gavin MacLeod and the entire cast of the Love Boat, and God rest his soul. But the passion for cruising is through and through with me.
That kind of led me to my next question. So obviously you did have an opportunity to really lock in some great travel adventures early on in your life.
I did indeed. My father would always take me to Disney, so he lived on the West Coast, and I grew up on the East Coast, but I could always go visit my father a couple of times a year, and he would take me to Disneyland, and I toured all around the New England area with my aunt and my uncle Floyd in their Winnebago. But I started cruising young. And I was about 10 years old when I was 10 years old when I took my first cruise. And by the time I became a travel advisor, I had already taken a dozen cruises, believe it or not.
Wow, that's amazing. Man, what a lucky guy. Now, before we jump into the current state of the industry, Charlie, can you tell me a little bit about why CLIA is such a vital organization, who it represents, and how that benefits the just overall travel agent community at large?
Certainly. So CLIA, we are the Worldwide Cruise Industry Trade Association, but I describe CLIA as being the cruise industry, because every organization that is part of the cruise industry, whether it's our executive partners that are involved in supply chain and shipbuilders and architects and all this stuff, all the supply chain for the hotels and so forth, all the way through our cruise lines, our travel trade partners, we have airline partners. So everything, the entire spectrum of the cruise industry is represented by CLIA. And where CLIA benefits travel advisors is that we help travel advisors differentiate themselves. You know, there are 140,000 travel advisors in the United States. And, you know, it's often a sea of sameness, right? In any industry, you really have to do whatever you can to stand out and to offer unique value to the people in your market and to really set yourself apart and develop that competitive edge. And that's really what CLIA does for you. It offers the definitive industry certification. You see the letters at the end of my name on this Zoom call. Well, the ECC stands for Elite Cruise Counselor. And when I started working as a travel advisor in 1994, my agency owner immediately had me become part of CLIA and had me start pursuing my first level of certification, which my first level was ACC, Accredited Cruise Counselor, but I worked my way up. And I would use that certification with the media. And given your background, Chris, you can certainly appreciate this, that the media wants to speak with experts, with authorities in their field. And so my local media, heck, I was the cruise guy. You know, I was the cruise person that they would turn to whenever they had any interest in a story on cruise.
Yeah, no, you have to make yourself stand out, exactly like you said, Charlie. You know what I mean? And I say it to anybody, whether or not you decide to incorporate and form an LLC that is the business, tell people that. Continue to be proud of it, sell it. It's going to translate into sales, which translates into dollars and cents, which is, you know, kind of what makes our whole world go round and round, right? Charles Sylvia, ECC Vice President of Industry and Trade Relations with CLIA, is our featured Meet the Industry guest today. Charlie, no doubt about it, it's been a long, hard road, and we all know the work is far from over, but I was hoping you could give us maybe a current state of the industry with some really exciting things going on right now and what some of the big focuses are in both the very short term and the long term for the cruising industry.
Well, you know, Chris, in the short term, obviously, there's been a lot of progress made in markets. And, you know, for everyone on this call, it's important for people to realize that we have been successfully carrying passengers. The cruise industry has been successfully carrying passengers all the way since July of last year, even before vaccines, with fewer than 50 cases, believe it or not. And so we figured it out. The big headline is this: the cruise industry has successfully and responsibly sorted out how to sail in the time of COVID, even before vaccines. I will tell you that obviously vaccines were a game changer for the cruise industry, and a lot of the success that we see now in reopening markets is as a direct result of the advent of vaccines. And what you're seeing is tremendous success in Europe and the United States and other key markets. However, there are still, to answer your question about the short term, there are still a lot of challenges in certain markets around the world, like, for example, Australia, New Zealand, certainly Canada. So we've still got a lot of work to do. It's almost 500 days, Chris. It's almost 500 days. The day that Cruise 360 opens in Hollywood, Florida, will be the 500th day since the industry decided on its own to shut down on March 13th of 2020. So it's been a long road. In terms of the long range goals, they are goals that we work on every single day at CLIA and in the cruise industry. You're talking environmental sustainability. That is a focal point of what we're committed to always be innovators and to lead in the area of environmental sustainability. And we've actually thrown down the gauntlet with a very, very strong commitment to reduce our carbon footprint. So environmental sustainability, public health and safety, certainly destination stewardship is one of our long range goals that we continue to work on every single day at CLIA. In other words, managing those destinations so that they maintain a friendly relationship with crews and that we are doing well by them. We want to make sure that we're responsible visitors to the communities and the ports that we call upon. And workforce development, certainly, and that includes the travel advisor community, the workforce development. We want to make sure that we're putting the most well-trained professional people in front of consumers to represent cruise travel. And that's what we're doing with the program that my team and I run in North America, in the United States and Canada. And certainly economic impact. We want to make sure that consumers know how much they love cruising. Travel advisors know how much we rely on cruising for our livelihoods. But it's important for policymakers, what we call the treetops, to understand the economic impact of cruising and how many jobs, and for even consumers to understand the fact, the realities of cruise, like, for example, sample flagging and so forth. So when you understand the facts about cruising, everything makes sense to you, and you understand how the business works without having to get too far into it. But we want to make sure that we're creating awareness and educating people on all of the good that the cruise industry does.
Absolutely. Very well put. As a follow-up, Charlie, I know just personally, it was just a huge sigh of relief. What was it like just for you and the people that you've had a chance to chat with, just to see those first ships sail in and out of the United States ports again? I mean, I know CLIA was so heavily involved in I don't know if the word fight is the right word, but as far as sharing that information, getting the right people to understand and see its successful return.
Well, I share your passion about this, and you're right. The right word is advocacy. That's really what it was all about. And yeah, it's been a long journey, and you're talking 12 to 14, 16-hour days sometimes, working around the clock, getting up in the wee small hours of the morning to make certain conference calls. And Kelly Craighead, our president and CEO, and her team at the senior leadership level, including Mike McGarry, our senior vice president of global government affairs and North American Secretariat, and Brian Salerno, our senior vice president of maritime policy, who also happens to be a 32-year veteran, retired vice admiral from the United States Coast Guard. These people, and all of us at CLIA, worked around the clock ever since since the early days in January, even before the cruise industry voluntarily shut down. We have worked around the clock toward the responsible resumption of cruise travel to make sure that we're doing it. We always put people first in everything that we did. And when you look at the early days of the pandemic and how we worked so hard to get passengers, get our guests back to their homes, get the crew members repatriated and back home to their individual countries, the cruise industry stood up. And whenever anyone asks me, what is the state of the cruise industry, I say the state of the cruise industry is very strong indeed, because what other industry can you think of that could shut down for 15 months with practically zero revenue and still come out of this and be able to not only restart, but restart in earnest and in a grand way? So to answer your question, Chris, there were tears running down my cheeks on June 26th when I saw Captain Kate drive the Celebrity Edge out of Port Everglades. Yeah,
it was a pretty amazing moment. I wasn't there. I was only watching the video, and it was a little bit choked up about the whole thing. And of course, the work is far from over. And I guess I want to know, what can the travel agent community do to help now and to help continue to see that cruising and travel continues to make strides in the right direction?
Well, I love this question, Chris, because it's something that I did back in 1994, believe it or not, when I was part of CLIA. It's to represent not only your travel business, but to represent the industry. And what I mean by that is, I think back to those early days, 28, going on 28 years ago, I would speak to the Rotary Club, and I would speak to neighborhood associations and homeowners associations and alumni associations, and I would speak to car dealerships about incentive cruises. And I took it on the road. I didn't wait for my phone. Back then, of course, we didn't have email, but
didn't go everywhere with you, right?
Right. I wouldn't wait for the phone to ring or for someone I worked in a brick and mortar, for someone to walk through the door. I wouldn't wait for that. My agency owner worked with me, and he said, you know what, Charlie, take it to the streets, take the story about cruising to the streets. I used to photocopy. I used to take the CLIA book. Of course, the CLIA book now is our website, right? But every year they sent the 2-inch thick CLIA book with all the facts and statistics and factoids and all this exciting stuff. And I would go and have transparencies made of those. And I would, using an overhead projector, I would speak to groups. And I'm not, not everybody wants to publicly speak, but my point is this. Think of yourselves not only as expounding on the benefits and the features and the benefits and the advantages of cruise travel, the merits of cruise travel. But think of yourselves also as champions of cruise travel, because it only serves your business to do so. Think of yourselves as myth busters, destroying those myths and misconceptions. That's another thing that CLIA does for travel advisors, is we are that third party. You know, you're in business for yourself. You're not in business by yourself. You've got your business, you've got Avoya, but then you've got this third party over here, CLIA. You can point at them. You can put our logo on your business card if you're a current member. You can point. I used to do that all the time. Where are my business cards? I had the CLIA logo on my business card. I would point to my business card when whoever I handed out to, I'd say, see those 3 letters? That just means that I'm an expert in cruise travel. I worked very hard to earn that certification. And this logo here, that's the Cruise Industry Trade Association, the worldwide. They acknowledge that I'm an expert in cruise travel. It'd be a privilege to earn your business. Boom, 10 seconds, and how impactful. So use us as that third party for credibility that you can cite. And we've got all the resources. I know a number of Avoya IAs that use CLIA. I see them use it in their social media. They use our infographics, they use our memes, they use our factoids, they use our social media posts. About 70% of the so you've got 100% of your social media, right? Well, the portion that you dedicate to cruise, about 70%, 70 to 80% of the time, features, benefits, merits of cruising. But then about 20 to 30% of your cruise portion should be myth busting. Did you know? Factoids. Start creating awareness and educating your marketplace out there about the facts and realities about cruise and how safe it is.
And, you know, one of my favorite events that happens, I would say every year, but of course, COVID goofed up my ability to say that, would be Cruise 360. And I'm so excited. Of course, last year it had to be canceled due to COVID, but it's returning in a couple of weeks. You alluded to that. It's going to be face-to-face. And every single person I know that's attending is just so excited to see colleagues again. Charlie, can you give us the latest on Cruise 360 now that we're just a few short weeks away?
Well, you know, Chris, I checked the numbers just this morning, and we were in the 980s. So by the time our call is over, there's probably we probably crossed the 1,000 threshold, and that's the number of travel advisors, not suppliers, not sponsors, not exhibitors, not production team. More than 1,000 travel advisors will be at what we're building as the reunion of the North American cruise community. And that's really what Cruise 360 will be this year. There are still a couple, you know, we haven't reached fire capacity in the ballroom yet. There's still a couple of registrations that remain for people who are South Florida who can get to Cruise 360, or people who can make last minute arrangements. So you can go to Cruise 360.org for complete information, but it is going to be spectacular. We're going to be a little bit more austere, as you can imagine. You know, there's not going to be as much of the razzle dazzle because everyone's been tightening their belts. Certainly CLIA was impacted. So, but you know what? We're all going to be together, and we're all going to be learning, and we're going to be sharing best practices with one another. We're going to be establishing new connections and new relationships, and we're going to have a whole lot of fun. So we hope that you can be part of it.
It's really one of the best events of the year, absolutely. And of course, you said the word relationships and connections. And I think all of us understand that, especially in the travel industry, even to this day and age, relationships are just so vital. Do you see that being even more important as we start to emerge out of the COVID crisis, Charlie?
So much more important. You know, Chris, one of the things that I always say right out of the gate when someone says, well, why do I need a travel advisor? I say to them, look, because you know why? Because travel advisors, myself as a travel advisor, because I still self-identify as a travel advisors have relationships that you as a consumer can never have. We know the ins and outs of this business. We know how it works. We know how to do it efficiently. We know how to look up availability and pricing efficiently. But besides the transaction, we know the destinations. We know the properties. We know the cruise lines. We know the airlines. We know the resorts. We know the theme parks. We know them like we know our name. And the reality is that we not only know and understand all of these products and experiences and modes of travel, we know the people that run them. And that's where I like to say at CLIA, that's where the keel meets the water. I will look a consumer in the eye and I'll say, you know what, I've got relationships and connections that you could never possibly have. And you know what? Even the best laid plans don't always go according to plan. And the reality is that when I pick up the phone to call a supplier, unlike a consumer, if a consumer picks up the phone to call a supplier, they represent that one little teeny tiny infinitesimal piece of business. When I pick up the phone, or when an Avoya IA picks up the phone to call a supplier, they're representing the hundreds of millions of dollars in business that Avoya IA's, the Avoya network does. And you know what? That clout is something that no individual consumer can ever have.
You know, one of the things that I love most about CLIA is that as an organization, you guys have always been focused on professional development. And I'm just a big believer that no matter how long you've been in the industry, if you don't do something to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on, you're going to be outdated really quick. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about CLIA's commitment to that ongoing professional development and how that can benefit someone that's new to the industry but still wants to affiliate with a top partner like an Avoya Travel?
Well, you know me, Chris, I love my maritime metaphors, right? So Captain Kate once said to me, she said, you know, the ships, if you rest, you rust, right? You don't stop the ship. And I equate that to professional development. CLIA's professional development, unlike supplier, and I don't take anything away from any cruise line academy because they're all important, but that's product knowledge. This knowledge that CLIA offers you is industry knowledge. And the difference is this: we are the ones that offer the certification, the only official certification of the cruise industry. So those letters at the end of your name, and thank you to all of the Avoya IAs who have committed to CLIA certification and who have achieved either one or more levels of it, because, you know, the statistic is what? 261%. So at CLIA, we have we have what's called the individual agent membership. Well, some of the individual agent members are not certified. You know, they just join CLIA for the benefits and the bonus commissions and the discounts on travel and so forth, and for the access to the courses. But then others, same membership level, others choose to take it to the next level by becoming certified. And the CLIA certified travel advisors sell 261% of the volume of the non-certified advisor. So for any travel advisor out there who wishes they could double or triple their cruise business, pursue CLIA certification and achieve it. It doesn't cost that much, and it's more of an investment in time and attention and effort. But you know what? It's not like breaking stones. You know, it's something that you can do. A lot of you have so much information in your head already that it would be very easy for you to achieve CLIA certification. And it'll help you with your credibility, your legitimacy. It'll help you get earned media attention if you use it right. Heck, one last thing, Chris. Do you know that every time I achieved a level, ACC, MCC, ECC, I issued a press release to my local media. And Chris, I would be in the newspaper with the accountant and the lawyer and the insurance professional, all of who were, you know, had stories about their career. I would be there. It's all about how seriously you take yourself and your profession and your career. And you know what, folks? We're no different than certified financial planners.
And you really think outside the box, Charlie. I love that about you. Charles Sylvia, ECC, Vice President of Industry and Trade Relations, as our featured guest today. Charlie, as we focus a few questions on you, the person outside of your role with CLIA, tell us a few things that you like to do for fun and unwind when you're away from work.
Well, when I'm not working, I love, as you can clearly tell, fine dining. I love reading. I love my Kennebunk, Maine. We've got a whole group of friends up in Kennebunk. We try to spend as much time in the summer in Kennebunk, Maine as possible. Of course, I live in Rhode Island. If you can see my glass there, the ocean state. So I live not too far from Newport. But I love art and museums and just sightseeing and just learning about different destinations, travel, of course. And believe it or not, I tend to take all my vacations on cruise ships, even though I'm on a ship usually every 4 to 6 weeks. I'm on a cruise. when it comes time for my own personal vacation, I usually usually choose cruise as my personal vacation.
You know, one of the things that I find fascinating as we've kind of emerged and went through this whole COVID crisis is this concept of revenge travel. I mean, if you told me, if you and I were having this conversation 2-3 years ago, and when we said the word revenge travel, I would have just laughed. But here we are, and people are anxious. They're excited to lock in a cruise, a trip, some kind of a great adventure. Is there any revenge on COVID trips coming up on your horizon, Charlie?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, Chris, because, I'm actually going to be I'm flying next June to London. I'm going to spend 5 nights at my favorite hotel in London, which is the Savoy. And I'm going to be going to the festivities for Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And so I believe no other British monarch has ever achieved the Platinum Jubilee, which is 70 years on the throne. So I'm going to be going to that, and then I'm coming home westbound from Southampton aboard Queen Mary 2 for a westbound transatlantic crossing. And that's something that I've done before. And actually, for those who know me well, they know that I've spent more than 100 nights aboard Queen Mary 2. So it's going to be a very royal revenge trip for me in 2022.
Charlie, we're so appreciative of your time today. One last question before we let you go. Any advice that you would offer to the travel community, travel agent community at large, as we try to, move away from COVID and into what I think all of us are hopeful and really are starting to believe will be a golden period for leisure travel?
Thank you for that question, Chris. Yes, folks, please focus on qualifying and time management, because I love you all dearly. I love travel advisors, and I respect you so much, and I respect your time. And right now it's gangbusters. I'm talking to travel advisors every single day who say that they're inundated with demand, inundated with inquiries. And so please, please, please get sharp as you can on qualifying, and make sure that you are working with clients who understand your value and who will end up booking with you ultimately. And we've got a lot of resources at CLIA to help you with that. But beyond that, any course in qualifying and being able to understand that client who's on the other end of the laptop or on the other end of your phone, because we want to make sure that your time, your precious, precious time and attention are focused on the people who get you and get what you do for them and appreciate you. So, and of course, time management, making sure that you make the most out of every day and make them as productive as possible.
Sylvia, ECC, everyone, Vice President of Industry and Trade Relations for Cruise Lines International Association. Charlie, thank you again for that great discussion. Couldn't think of a better first guest as we expanded into a Meet the Industry segment. And I'm so excited to actually say I'll see you in a few weeks for Cruise 360.
I can't wait, Chris. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again, Charlie. Next week, we're really excited that our Meet the Team guest will be Nick Renaud. Nick is the manager of promotions at Avoya Travel. You can learn how the promotions department helps plan and manage travel promotions with our supplier partners to provide the best inventory for your clients. All right, so let's talk about some exciting things, right? Maybe you are thinking about getting into the industry. Maybe you want to be a travel advisor and be part of this amazing industry, but you don't have experience. Well, no problem, because we've reopened our New to Travel program, and it directly ties into the discussion I just had with Charlie from CLIA, because we use CLIA as that springboard into future success. You can be your own boss. You set your own hours. You grow your business with innovative resources. Contact us to get started. We'll provide you with all the information, help you, understand the steps. It's pretty easy and manageable. And then boom, next thing you know, you could be an affiliate with the #1 host agency in the United States. That's Avoya Travel. All right, so let's talk about some promotions that are geared for experienced travel professionals. They're still active now that we're into July, right? Top end, very high-end experienced travel professionals, those that like in 2019 would have had gross sales in the $500,000 or above range. We've got a great promotion where you can affiliate with zero upfront fee to affiliate with Avoya Travel. You can reach out, you can talk to a network expansion specialist. They can get you qualified for all of that. If you're still trying to get to that level, that's fine. It takes steps for each and every person to get there, right? We have a great promotion for you as well. At the end of your initial agreement, we're waiving that 6-month renewal fee. So you pay the normal fee to affiliate. At the end of the first agreement, if both partners want to continue, then we're waiving that renewal fee. Again, explore with complete flexibility with no long-term contract or exclusive agreement. You can again contact us for eligibility and offer details. The network expansion specialist would love to have that conversation and see if we can't put together the beginning stages of a shared success relationship with you too. So how do you reach out to us? There's so many simple ways. There's my email on the screen, chris.green@avoyatravel.com. Reach out anytime. Our phone number is listed there. You can get a hold of us through our website at avoyanetwork.com. Leave us a message here just on Facebook and we'll respond and we'll get you connected with a specialist that way. If you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. Leave us a message. We will follow up. We want to hear from you. We want to explain. We want to answer your questions, set you up for a demonstration of our unique technology, and again, see if together we can't put together the beginning stages of a shared success relationship. Again, big thank you to my special guest today, Charles Sylvia, ECC, Vice President of Industry and Trade Relationships at CLIA. A big thank you to Marissa Smith, who produces our segment in the background. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you next Thursday, everyone.